Welcome to the Eagle's Nest, a retelling of the Copper Peak story titled Soaring with the Eagles, written by former Copper Peak Board President Charles Suprasinski. Charlie's book is published by Superior Peak Publishing and is available at the Copper Peak site during the summer and fall and at the usual outlets. This is the story of the sport of ski jumping in the western Upper Peninsula of Michigan, with references to other winter activities in the area. We hope you'll enjoy these segments of the Eagle's Nest, which air at 6:08 a.m. and p.m. and 11:08 a.m. and p.m. Central Time. For our international listeners in Oslo and Warsaw, the Eagle's Nest can be heard at 6:08 a.m. and p.m. and at 1:08 a.m. and p.m. If you live elsewhere, please adjust your times accordingly. So, here we go with the Eagle's Nest. Well, here we are at the beginning. How did ski jumping emerge as a national sport in America? Well, I guess the sport of skiing originated in the Scandinavian countries of Northern Europe, but mostly in Norway. Archaeologists found evidence of primitive skis found to be thousands of years old. Ski jumping in America was heavily influenced by Norwegian immigrants who came here for all the usual immigrant reasons. Better employment opportunities, a chance to own property, and to escape military conscription. Let's face it, in the 1800s, Europe was a mess, so the expansion and development of the American Midwest happened at exactly the right time for these immigrants. They brought with them their farming skills and settled the south central plains of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And they brought their lumbering skills and worked the woods in the northern tiers of these states. They brought their mining skills, being actively recruited by the copper and iron mining companies in the Lake Superior Basin. And they brought their love of skiing to the USA. The Norwegian influence led in the late 1800s to the formation of numerous ski clubs in the three-state area. Some 65 communities in the Midwest would develop active ski jumping programs and build ski jumps of varying size. The range communities of Wakefield, Bessemer, Ironwood in Michigan, and Hurley, Wisconsin, were carved out of the wilderness in the early 1880s following the discovery of one of the richest iron ore bodies in the world. It came to be known as the Gogebic-Penoke Iron Range. Mining equipment was transported by ship on Lake Superior to the mouth of the Black River. From there it was hauled along what is presently County 513, that is Black River Road, past what is currently Copper Peak to the Colby Hill mine site above Bessemer. The first load of iron ore from the Colby mine, some 1,022 tons, was shipped by rail in 1884 to Milwaukee, then by boat to the steel mills in Erie, Pennsylvania. The iron rush was on. Within a year, there were 7 operating mines, which had attracted some 2,000 workers from all over the world. Many were from Northern Europe and eventually became the impetus for winter sports in the USA. Ironwood, the largest city on the Gogebic Range, was to become the focal point of early skiing activity in the area. The Lake Superior Basin became the greatest producer of copper and iron ore in the world. It provided 90% of the iron ore that built the skyscrapers in our big cities, our rail systems, roads, bridges, and the armaments for 2 world wars. Mining companies actively recruited many Northern Europeans to work the copper and iron ore mines. Many of these individuals were the prime movers in organizing the first ski clubs. The following communities in the Lake Superior Basin developed strong ski jumping clubs in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Ishpeming, Michigan and the Marquette Iron Range, Iron Mountain, Michigan and the Menominee Iron Range, Ironwood, Michigan and the Gogebic Iron Range, Hibbing, Minnesota and Coleraine, Minnesota on the Mesabi Iron Range, Duluth at the hub of Lake Superior and the outlet for Minnesota iron ore developed a strong ski jumping program. The competition became intense early on among these communities and other communities to the south in Wisconsin. Well, let's talk about the first organized ski jumping in the Midwest. Maybe we should take a little step back and talk about the time frame here. We know that communities located in central Wisconsin and Minnesota were the first to develop ski jumping clubs. These communities had been in existence since the early 1800s, while many of the communities bordering Lake Superior were only developed in the late 1880s. Red Wing, Minnesota is believed to have formed the first organized ski club in the Midwest, the Aurora Ski Club, in 1886. Now bear in mind that Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota had only recently been granted statehood in the United States. Michigan became a state in 1837, Wisconsin 1848, and Minnesota 1858. And so we're talking about forming of a club in Red Wing, Minnesota in 1886. So that's not very far after they just became a state. Ishpeming, Michigan organized the Norden Ski Club 1 year later on January 24th, 1887. Other communities such as Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota and Chippewa Falls and Eau Claire in Wisconsin organized shortly thereafter. The first organized ski jumping competition in the central U.S. was held in Stoughton, Wisconsin. Yes, I said Stoughton, Wisconsin, just like Houghton, Michigan, but Stoughton is located 20 miles southeast of Madison, and they held their meet in 1884, and it was won on a jump of only 48 feet by Elaf Tilton of Stoughton. The European standard had been set by Torjus Hammersmith 5 years earlier in 1879 when he leaped 74 feet in Rusbybakken, Norway. Torjus, who had moved to the U.S., now living in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, placed second at Stoughton. He also won the third American meet in 1889, also at Stoughton, with a leap of 74 feet. Ishpeming, Michigan became a hotbed of skiing activity in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. The souvenir publication of the Ishpeming Ski Club printed for the 2003 ski jumping competition at Suicide Hills stated, "The Scandinavians who immigrated to the iron mines of the Marquette Range brought their love of skiing with them. So it was they formed the Norden Ski Club in January 1887. They had both outings and ski jumping competitions that winter. By the winter of 1887-88, the Norden Club was ready for a major jumping competition, and it was held on February 25th, 1888, on the south side of Lake Angeline. It was a great success, as were the 1889 and 1890 tournaments." So, the ski jumping community of Ishpeming was very active and instrumental in promoting a central ski association and later a national ski association. When the Central Ski Association of the Midwest was formed in St. Paul in 1890, Ishpeming was designated host of the first regional championship on January 21st, 1891. And this was a gala competition and community carnival. Mikkel Hammersmith of Red Wing, Minnesota had the longest jump of 78 feet. At that time, the Ishpeming Ski Club promoted the idea of having a national ski association. The tournament tradition was established, but the Northwest Association folded after 1894 due to the economic recession and several years of poor snow conditions. Local competition continued until the revival and reorganization in 1901. The tournaments were usually held on Washington's birthday. Ishpeming held an outstanding competition February 22, 1904, that brought visitors from Cleveland, Chicago, and throughout the Midwest. Later it was decided to call this the first national championship. The leap of 78 feet in Ishpeming in 1891 was a U.S. record, but it is uncertain whether or not it became a world record. This record was to last some 13 years. The flight of 82 feet by Thomas Walter in Ishpeming in 1904 established a new American distance record, but fell short of the world record set by Nels Gisvang of Gustenbakken, Norway. Easy for you to say. In 1902, he set that record and the European and world standard when he jumped 134 feet. Ishpeming, having dominated the Midwest ski jumping communities from 1891 through 1904, also retained the American distance record through 1908. In 1908, the American distance record was 122 feet at Ishpeming. Establishing and retaining the USA ski jumping distance record for a period of some 17 years is really a remarkable undertaking and achievement. It vividly underscores the passion in which the Ishpeming Ski Club pursued and supported the sport. The club's efforts to create a regional and later a national ski association was instrumental in creating an awareness and appreciation of the sport. Huge crowds began to be attracted to these events throughout the Midwest. The competition among the clubs to secure the national championship was becoming more intense. Ski jumping hills were being built at a rapid pace. The sport was rapidly becoming of age and could be rightly classified as the first extreme winter sport in the country. As you can see, there was a great economic benefit to having a meet that brought in people from all over the Midwest. As other hills were being constructed throughout the Midwest that were becoming larger and capable of greater distances, the American distance record began to shift to west central Wisconsin, such as Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and Oscar Gunderson in Chippewa Falls, 138 feet. At the same time, the world records were being set in Europe. Harold Smith in Davos, Switzerland, 147 feet. Sigurd Brevik, Österlen, Norway, 163 feet. That jump was a world record, but it's questionable because of a fall. And so now, let's talk about Ironwood and how they got interested in skiing and entered the jumping world. To do that, we'd have to go back to 1894. Ironwood is, at that time, one of the youngest communities emerging out of the discovery of the iron ore deposits throughout the Lake Superior Basin. The city was founded in 1885 and incorporated in 1889. And like any newly built community, it took some time to become established and mature to the point where its citizens began to look for ways to enjoy their leisure time. And at leisure time at that time meant Sunday afternoon. Most people that were working at the mines worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. So that left Sunday, where usually you had to go to church on Sunday morning and try to get out to the ski hill on Sunday afternoon. Skiing was a natural for any area with many bluffs and hills in the Ironwood area. Abundant lake effect snows averaging 200 inches annually grace the area from November to April, creating an ideal area for winter sports and people who like to shovel snow. While a few communities in the Midwest had organized ski clubs, the first evidence of ski jumping in Ironwood is described in the Ironwood News Record. But it wasn't until 1905 that the Ironwood Ski Club organized enough to have their own meet. They had a longest jump of 61 feet, and that occurred at a time when the record was 78 feet in Ishpeming. It would take some time, more than 10 years, before organized skiing would be taken to a higher level. Below is evidence of the first organized ski jumping activity in Ironwood from the Ironwood News Record. In the article titled "Skiing is Popular," obviously the article was placed in there to build up interest by the general public to come to the ski tournaments. Here's what the article says. Skiing is popular. Many people went out to the slide at White's Hill last Saturday to see the local riders in practice. There were 5 or 6 good riders among the lot, most of whom did good work considering the condition of the slide, which was not ready for long jumps. The proposed scaffold was not up yet, hence the desired speed for long jumps could not be attained. A number of men have been engaged all this week in fixing the slide and putting up the scaffold, which is 50 feet long and 25 feet high. So those who go out to the hill tomorrow will see an example of what will be going on at the much talked about ski tournament at Ishpeming on February 22nd. The riders who will participate in the contest at Ishpeming will be picked out tomorrow. The number of riders that will go to Ishpeming from Ironwood is not known as yet. There being some good riders here who seem a little bit shaky about entering the contest. But if these can be persuaded to go, there will be quite a representation of Ironwood ski riders at Ishpeming. You should go out tomorrow and see an exhibition of the great Norwegian sport. The White's Hill that they talk about is located about a half a mile north of Highway US 2 and north of the county fairgrounds. So that's where it was located. It was built on the bluffs to the west of North Superior Street, and later it was referred to as Curry Hill. 1 week later, the Ironwood News Record on Saturday, February 18th, 1905, had this to say. The title was The Ski Exhibition Sunday. A free exhibition will be given tomorrow afternoon on White's Hill. The local ski riders promise some rare sport tomorrow afternoon on White's Bluff, north of the fairgrounds. The scaffold has been completed and some long jumps may be expected. The members of the local club have been practicing every day and invite the general public to be present tomorrow afternoon. The jumping will commence at 2 o'clock sharp. 6 riders were selected to represent Ironwood at Ishpeming, the first recorded trip to an out-of-town venue. The local riders will leave Tuesday at 11:30 for Ishpeming. Tickets from Saxon to Ishpeming and return are selling at a cost of $3.50. So at that time, the rail line north of Ironwood was owned by the Duluth, South Shore, and Atlantic Railroad and ran from Duluth to Sault Ste. Marie and was constructed in the late 1880s. The rail trip to Ishpeming took between 3 and 4 hours. On February 22nd, 1905, Washington's birthday, the National Ski Tournament was held in Ishpeming. This event is significant as it represents the first time that skiers from Ironwood are involved in a regional competition. The Ironwood Ski Club organized informally 1 year earlier and was starting to build a tradition of competitive ski jumping. The competition at Ishpeming vividly shows how this sport is beginning to capture the imagination of both the competitors and viewing public alike. Ironwood's delegation of ski riders didn't figure in the prize winning, but did fairly well on a strange slide. This was the first tournament that most of the local riders took part in. Olaf Holmo being the only one in the bunch who ever participated in a tournament before. It was the swiftest slide they had ever rode on, and hence were not used to traveling at such a terrific speed. Quite a number of Ironwood people attended the tournament, and all seemed pleased with the exhibition and spoke in glowing terms of the excellency with which the tournament was carried out by the directors. A ball and reception were held at Brandstad's Hall and wound up the day, for which the ski riders and many Ironwood people remained over until Thursday to attend. In 1906, the ski club organizes the inaugural season of the Ironwood Ski Club. In 1905, proved to be successful as the club was able to construct a scaffold on White's Hill and run a local tournament. They were able to send their best skiers to the national tournament in Ishpeming. Interest in the sport was growing from both the skiers and the spectators' perspective. The club was loosely organized in 1905, but took formal steps to organize in 1906. Well, that just about does it for this chapter of the Eagle's Nest. Please join us again next time when we explore the world of ski jumping and how it became so popular, leading to the development of Copper Peak, the largest artificial ski flying hill in the world. This is your narrator, Dan McManaman, and I sure hope that you'll join us again. See you next time, and take it easy.